Welcome back to Music Free Static. I hope you're having a fabulous day, and I've had preparation on my mind a lot lately. See, Xcel, which is the local power company, is turning off the power grid to a good chunk of the city, including where I work, okay? And so we've spent the last couple of days, or couple of weeks and more making sure everything is going to survive the power outage. So, I've had to work late a couple of times this week, testing UPSs, testing generators in our data centers, and things like that, to make sure everything is up to the task. And it turns out that it was a good thing we did the tests, because a lot of our UPSs were actually bad, which was annoying because you looked at the display on the UPS and it said, oh, everything's fine, until we cut over to it. And then it just didn't provide power. Some of them were nice enough to say, oh, low battery for about half a second before they shut down. But nothing on the panel said, hey, I'm not going to be able to do what you paid me to do, right? So that sucked. Fortunately, we've had time, because we were doing tests, to pull a couple of spare UPSs that we had and get them in place to use them as temporary replacements, because they're older UPSs. We pulled them out of our old data center as we were prepping for renovations. They're not really designed. In fact, they don't work directly with my equipment because I need 30 amp output on the UPSs. These don't have it. So trust me, it's just a mess. But we had them, and we were able to power what we needed to power, so that when the power goes out, my servers will stay up. Okay. Now, I tell you this story because we've all been in a situation where we all kind of wish we had thought ahead maybe just a little bit, right? Because preparation's important. And we tend to overlook it, okay? And it's not just about planning for big events, right? Sometimes it's just the small things that will sort of build and compound and give us a significant advantage as we go forward, okay? So we'll talk about a bunch of the benefits here of preparation, and we'll talk about a couple of places in life where, hey, preparation is definitely going to be a good thing, okay? Now, before I get into this, well, actually, no, let's just get into it. One of the first places that preparation will benefit you, and certainly has benefited me, is in reducing stress and anxiety. Now, I suffer from anxiety a little bit, and it sucks, okay? So anything I can do to help minimize that is a benefit, right? Now, what's fun, we have in part of the Latter-day Saint scriptural canon, there's a verse, it's Doctrine and Covenants 38:30, that ends, if you're prepared, you shall not fear, okay? And honestly, there's a lot to that, okay? Because uncertainty fuels stress, right? The more you're unsure about what's going on, the more anxiety you're going to feel. And preparation can help navigate that, all right? So if you are maybe planning the night before, or packing the night before a trip, or if you're planning a road trip, right? Knowing what routes you're going to take. Yes, I've got a Google Maps or whatever, but looking at it ahead of time, it's like, okay, I kind of know vaguely the route I'm going to be taking. So I know that when I get to Albuquerque, I have to take a right instead of a left, or vice versa, depending on whether or not your name is Bugs Bunny. So right, that type of thing is awesome. And we'll talk about ways that you can prepare here in a little bit, but knowing that you have an idea, right? This is why you build, you have some sort of fire plan for your house, right? So if there's a fire, you know how you're going to get out, okay? It's annoying, right? Sometimes it's a little anxiety inducing to think, okay, if my house is on fire, where do I run? But having that plan is great. And knowing, it's like, we had a plan with my family that if we had a house fire, we had a couple of different exits. So okay, if we're upstairs, if we can go down the main staircase. If we can't, we can go out a back window onto the roof of the enclosed porch. We have, boy, that sounds more grandiose. It's about 6 feet wide. I mean, it's not much, but on top of that, basically we use it as a storeroom, and then it's close enough to the ground we can hop down. Okay. But then, most importantly, we planned meeting spots. Okay. Can we meet over across the street by the fire hydrants? Great. If not, a couple blocks down is a church. We'll go meet in that parking lot, right? It helps having that sort of plan. Okay. It can also help boost your confidence and performance in a situation, right? For those of you who have been in college or in school at all and had to take tests, how many of you felt much better going into a test if you had studied and were prepared and you knew the material versus when you had no clue, right? I definitely felt better, right? Ultimately, if you're preparing ahead of time, you'll have better outcomes, right? Because if you are buying your ingredients ahead of time, when it comes time to actually make those cookies or brownies or donuts or chili or whatever, having all of the ingredients helps, and you don't want to find out you're short ingredients when you need them. It also gives you an opportunity to seize opportunities when they come, right? I heard somebody described luck. I think, let me see if I may get this wrong, so I'll paraphrase, but the idea is that luck is when preparation meets opportunity. So maybe you're sort of looking for a new job or not. You're open to new opportunities. If one shows up, being able to have a resume right on hand to send is huge. Okay? Because you can just jump right on that. Right? Having that sort of preparation, having some of those things just ready for an eventuality. Okay? You can really benefit from that. And then of course you can be more adaptable. Okay? Because look, the reality is things are going to go wrong. Right? There is no world where everything goes right for everybody all the time. All right? But having some form of preparation means that you can be more adaptable, right? So in the case of our UPSs, when we found out we had a bunch of those fail, we had some spares. And that allowed us to have a plan in place so that we could keep the servers up rather than having to shut everything down while the city has no power. Okay. And it makes it nice to have a backup plan. So let me give you an example of this, because this was weird. All right. So several years ago now, the city I live in, our water supply became contaminated with salmonella. Okay. They tracked it down to an animal that had died in a ground level water storage tank. Okay. Well, that sucks. Now nobody in town can drink the water. Okay. Oh, you could, if you could boil it. Okay, so you could still use it, you boil it, you can cook. You could, well, no, yeah, it was a mess. You could still bathe, you could still use toilets. Okay, cooking was a problem, right? That type of thing. All right, fine. But we had some water stored. We had a dozen or so 2-liter soda bottles that we had washed out. And we had just filled with water and stored. So when the order came, don't drink your water, we weren't worried about it because we had water. Now, it wouldn't have lasted us very long, a day or two at the most. But we had a couple of days so that we didn't have to worry about it. So when I was with the Red Cross and at the time, the order came that said, hey, we need volunteers. Water is being shipped in. We need people to help hand out water. was able to be right there first in line and say, I can help because my family was taken care of. I was able to adapt. We were more able to weather that storm because we had prepared ahead of time. And honestly, that's where it matters, right? Preparation happens before the crisis, not during, and definitely maybe after, so you can prepare for the next crisis. And you'll see it in your professional life, right? Whether you're dealing with meetings, being able to know what's on an agenda, just so you can prepare answers and gather information that you might need, right? Job interviews are a wonderful place to prepare. It's like, hey, research the company you're applying at, right? It's a huge benefit in a lot of ways if you're interviewing with company Y, and they say, why do you want to work for Y? And you can say, well, Y produces the finest questions and jokes in the world, right? And being able to pull that out says, I would love to be here because I know that when people ask why, they want to know why they're not using Y for all of their puntastic needs, right? And that's that is a benefit, right? If you're working on a project, and whether this is at home or at work or whatever, knowing what your timelines are. Oh, we have to get this done by this date because, and all right, and then you can start working back. It's like, what are we going to need? When do we need to get materials? All of that stuff, right? Right. If you're traveling, it's kind of nice to know, where am I going? How am I getting there? Where am I going to stay when I do get there? Right? All of that stuff. And then, of course, you get your emergency preparedness stuff, which I touched on a little bit with water, but having basic emergency kits. I mean, everyone should have a first aid kit, right? Do you have Band-Aids and stuff like that for just the normal stuff that's going to happen in life? Okay. I'm a klutz. I know it. I bump into things. You'll never know the number of times I have scratches and things on my legs, and I'm limping because my toes found something sharp in the middle of the night, right? But having emergency kits. I talked about our family evacuation plan in case of a fire, right? And we pulled it out once a year. It's like, okay, here's where we're going. Here's where we're meeting, right? And it was great. And like I said, the water, when we had the salmonella, was huge because it meant we didn't have to stress. I mean, I saw people on that line those first couple of days that was like, who were freaking out over what are we going to drink? How are we going to survive? It's like, okay, we've got water. We have to ration it because we only have so much, and we have to be sure that we can give it to people. So it's a gallon per person per day. But hey, we had it. Okay. And I'll tell you, it was a huge relief knowing that we had all of that there, right? Everybody remember COVID, right? And the runs on toilet paper, man, it was insane. People were going out and buying out Costco toilet paper. And I'm looking at my stash of, and I did. I had a fair stash of toilet paper. Why? Because it was on sale a couple of months before, and I just bought a bunch. Because it was on sale. And it's not like toilet paper goes bad, right? So, hey, I wasn't worried about it. So, it goes back to that anxiety thing, right? So here's the deal. Preparing and building a preparation mindset, maybe if you want to think about it that way, isn't hard. It does take a little time, but you can start small, okay? It's not like you have to go from I am not prepared for anything to being the world's greatest prepper, okay? I'm not talking about going that far. It is possible to over prepare, all right? but start small, all right? And find some area to focus on, okay? Maybe it's as simple as before you go to bed at night, double check what you have on your agenda for the next day, okay? Oh, I'm going to work. Do I have meetings? Okay, or something like that. Okay, cool. What's the weather going to be like? Right? Is it going to be rainy? Is it going to be snowing? Is it going to be hot and sunny? Right? Just check that and maybe pick out clothes for the next day, or um, just know what you've got going on ahead of time, right? If you've got kids, do they have events that they have to get to? I had 5 kids. We had events going on all the freaking time because they were in dance and taekwondo and church activities and all that stuff. It's like, okay, when are they? Who's taking them there? Right? All of that stuff. Okay. But that's a really small thing to do. It just becomes a habit. Check your agenda. Set it at the night before, first thing in the morning, whatever it is, whatever works best for you. Check it, and just start there. That's a small level of preparation. Okay. If you're looking at things like we did with the water, just save a couple of gallons or however it is you want to do. It doesn't take a lot to. Well, it takes a lot of water for a long time, but for a couple of days, like I said, the gallon per person per day is. Those are the typical numbers you work with. Okay, so that's what the Red Cross was working with when we were going through it. That's when they talk about water storage. It's about what they're looking at. And yeah, finding a place to store it, it's a little fun, but it's not too bad. We used to keep, well, I know actually we still do keep 3 or 4 or 5 of those type of bottles frozen. Just keep in the freezer. One, it's water storage. Yay, we can pull it out of the freezer. But we had a couple of times we went on some long trips, and we would just take those water bottles and throw them in the cooler for snacks. And what was great is then we had better tasting water when we got up to wherever it is we were going. Now, one thing you can do, and this is sort of important if you're going through preparation, but you can go a little far with it, is you play the what if game. It's like, what am I preparing for? If X happens, what happens to my plan? Okay. And try to prepare for it that way. Now, for things like trips, okay, you can have it's nice to have some backup plans. Again, it's very easy to go overboard with this, especially if you are on the anxiety side of the spectrum. Okay. If you get real anxious and stuff, yeah, it's easy to overprepare. One of the things I do, I'm a little paranoid about after I've booked a hotel. I stress about getting there and them not having a record of my reservation. Okay. Seriously, this is just one of those things. It bugs me. And it happened once. Okay. Turns out they had my reservation. It was just misspelled in their system. Okay. And that was my fault. I misspelled my own name. Yes. I have a very easy last name, and I just typoed and dropped an R in it accidentally. And whoops. Fortunately, what I do to prepare is I print out all of my reservation materials so that when I get there, it's like, here's my reservation number. Okay, so I have documented proof that, yep, I had a reservation. What's up with that? Okay. And in the case of that hotel, it was quick, easy. Oh, yes, I see you here. Gotcha. We're good to go. Right. It was an easy thing to prepare, and it saved headaches when I got there. Other things you can deal with preparation is, hey, make checklists and have routines. Okay. So, and we're talking about simple things, not like a giant to-do list that you'll never see the bottom of. Okay. We're talking about simple things. Like, do you have a checklist of stuff to bring with you, right? My dad actually had a thing posted on the door. It's on the back of the door to his house. And he would go through and say, wallet, glasses, right? All of that stuff. Just to be sure, it was just a quick checklist. Do I have everything I'm going to need? Right? Do I have my wallet? Do I have my watch? Do I have my glasses? He was a cop, so did he have his gun? Because he never went anywhere without it. He was a cop. This is, that was just on his checklist. His girlfriend had one too, because she'd so often would come over, and they'd, spend the time doing whatever it was, watching TV and dinner and whatever it is other, adults, long-term boyfriends and girlfriends do. But the number of times she would leave and then it come back because she forgot her phone or she forgot her purse, right? So she had a list too. Said, okay, got my list. It just helps alleviate some of those things, right? And again, having a daily routine, I'll tell you, having a routine helped with my daughter. My oldest daughter she got all the anxiety, right? A lot of my kids do, but she had it bad. So we had a routine. Every Sunday, we'd sit down and we'd have a family council, and we would talk about the schedule for the week. Here's what's going on, okay? Obviously, I'm going to work. We have, there's, dance on these days and church activity on Wednesday and, whatever else was going on. And, something special is happening, right? There's a ward party or there's something else happening at church or whatever, right? Because if there's a change in the routine, my oldest daughter, especially when she was little, just freaked out, okay? But if we could tell her, say, hey, we talked about this on in our family council. She's like, oh, yes, gotcha. We did. I'm good. Let's go. It was a simple thing. It was amazingly simple. And it helped them, but it also helped us as parents because I knew what was going on. My wife knew what was going on. And most of the time we were able to get kids to where they were going and pick them up again. Not to say that we were perfect at all of that. We definitely weren't. And this is my 87,000th apologies to my kids for the number of times we had some communication issues and were late picking them up or whatever. Okay. But it helped, right? And you can use a lot of tools for this, right? You can use calendars. You can use reminders on your phone. Note apps. My wife has really fallen in love with the Notes app on her phone. Okay. Because it's great just to be able to, okay, don't necessarily create the never ending to-do list, right? But having the list of, okay, this is what I've got on my agenda for tomorrow, right? And this is, if you want to get into things like the getting things done methodologies and all of that stuff, it's worth diving into. I got into it. It was helpful. I've let myself get out of the habit and it's a problem and I need to get back into it, okay? And this goes into the next point is learn from your experience. When you've prepared, you can often see that, yes, preparation was awesome. And when you haven't, you can see, okay, if I had done this, things would have been better. Okay. Being able to reflect on your experiences, look back and say, all right, what worked, what didn't, and what can I improve? Okay. But again, be cognizant of the fact that it is possible to over prepare and you can let your preparation become procrastination, right? Oh, I won't do this because I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. 10 years later, you're still not ready. Okay. The goal is to be ready, right? The goal is to be able to do what you have planned to do. The goal is not to be perfect. Okay. Don't let perfection stop you from living. Okay. And honestly, so you can talk yourself into an anxiety attack. What if this fails? What if this fails? What if this fails? Yes, there are things that are going to go wrong. And there are probably things that are going to go wrong that you did not prepare for. Okay. And Murphy's Law says that if anything can go wrong, it will. And there's a corollary that says it will go wrong in the worst possible way. That's not entirely true. Okay. said, going back to our power issues, we actually found something at work. As we went to do a test on our generator a couple of days ago, we couldn't fail over to the generator. And we're looking at each other like, okay, this is now a problem. Because our whole preparation is based off our UPSs will keep the servers up for maybe 10 minutes. But the reality is they typically have to hold them up for about 15 seconds because that's about the time it takes for us to go from utility power to generator power and for everything to smooth out. That's it. It is really chill, but it's all predicated on the generator running. Well, the reason we couldn't fail over to the generator is it was already running. We don't know why it was running, but we were running on the generator. Now, we have a natural gas generator. We don't have to go in and fill it with diesel every couple of days or anything like that when it's running. It's just taps into the natural gas lines and all that stuff. But so we didn't have to worry about that. But if there was a way for this system to fail, this was one of the best ways for it to fail because we need it to be running, and it is. We didn't necessarily need it to be running today before we have power, but the fact that it is running means we will have power as we go forward through the outage. Okay. So yeah, and there are lots of things that we do. Like one of the things we do, yeah, for general preparations, one, we have a menu for meals. Okay. It helps my wife out a lot for a couple of reasons. Because one, she's home and the one preparing the meals. Okay. Not that I can't cook, it's just she's home and I'm not. Okay. I actually enjoy cooking a lot more than she does, but she's the one who's home. But having a menu means that, hey, we know what we're buying. It's easier for us to put together a grocery list because, hey, we know what's coming up this week. And we also know what's coming up because we have a menu that runs for 12 weeks. Okay. This allows us to keep variety, right? Variety in our diet is a good thing. And without a menu, we ended up falling back to eating like the same 5 things, which kind of sucks. So it gets old fast. But having all of that prepared means, oh yeah, we can see that something is on sale. It's on sale at the store this week, and well, we don't need it this week, but we will need it in 3 weeks, and it's not going to go bad. It's a can of beans. Okay, we can buy those now, right? So we end up saving some money. We just have to store it. Plus, having ingredients on hand means that if something happens, we've had a couple of times that for some reason, like we bought some ground beef, and some of it went bad really fast. Surprisingly fast. Okay. It's like, what the heck was wrong with this sort of fast? Well, we can pivot and do something else because we have ingredients. Okay. And if you're looking at things like food storage, I'm a huge proponent of food storage. I'm not a huge practitioner of food storage, unfortunately, but I would love to have a year's worth of food stored. Do I have a year's worth of food stored? No. But having a couple of weeks at least is kind of nice because it means that, hey, if a storm hits and I can't get to the store for one reason or another, because I live in Colorado, it snows. And sometimes when it snows hard and I just can't get to the store. Well, okay, I have food. I don't have to worry about it for a few days. Okay, this is great, right? So it's a little thing, and the food storage is easy, right? You don't have to do it all at once. You can go buy a year's worth of MREs if you want to, or when you're out buying groceries, buy an extra can of your canned veggies or whatever you're buying, just every trip, and be sure to rotate your food storage. That's important, and you're good, right? Over time, you build up enough extra food that you've got some stored. Now, it may mean you're living off rice and beans for a few days, but that's better than going hungry, okay? Especially if you have some multivitamins or something too, right? So yeah, preparation is awesome. It's can be relatively easy. You don't have to go crazy. Like I said, you don't have to go full prepper, because for most of the cases, you don't need it, right? Prepare for what's likely. Okay. I live in the mountains. I am not concerned about hurricanes. But the reality is, hurricanes are not going to be a problem for me, right? I am so far from an ocean, and 7,000 feet up, I do not have to worry about hurricanes. I do have to worry about snow, right? I live in a valley. Tornadoes happen, but so rarely that it's like, okay, they can't happen. And we don't, because we said we're in a valley, we don't get the F5s that you get out in the plains, right? I live in a geologically stable area. Earthquakes are not really a thing. What I have to worry about is snow, and it gets bone flipping cold. So that's what I prepare for weather, right? So, look at those, the low-hanging fruit, right? What's the easy stuff? And, even if it's just, okay, do I have a first aid kit? All right, we'll start there if you don't, right? And ask yourself, what can I prepare for right now? And, what can I do this week? And said it can be simple. It could be as simple as, hey, I'm going to check the weather every night before bed. Or I'm going to check my agenda so I know what's coming for the next day. Or when I go to the store, I'm going to buy one extra can of food to build up some food storage. Whatever it is, okay? And again, it goes back to the scripture I quoted earlier. If you're prepared, let me get it again. If you're prepared, you shall not fear, right? Or was it Ben Franklin? By failing to prepare, you're preparing to fail, right? It's that same sort of thing. Start with the easy stuff, right? Don't get into then aliens will invade and what will happen? No, just start small and go with that, okay? And let me know. Let me know what you decide to do. Drop a comment and let me know, hey, I decided this week to do what I decided. I'm going to start looking at the weather and pulling out my clothes the night before. Awesome, right? It doesn't have to be huge. You just start building that habit of preparing and planning ahead just a little bit, and you'll see those benefits. You'll see the confidence and reduction in anxiety and all of that stuff. And honestly, the freedom and flexibility of being prepared. Because, hey, you can control your situation rather than being controlled by your situation. And that is awesome. So yeah, let me know what you're doing. And yeah, of course, like and subscribe and all that fun stuff. And until next time, be excellent to each other. And this is Music Free Static signing off.